Hello all, welcome to History with R&R Live. With me as always, Jeff Franklin. How are we doing today?
A little hot today, but hanging in there.
Warm.
Greetings,
Yeah,
everyone.
we had a thunderstorm all morning. So
Nice. I wish it would rain here.
Yeah, well, that's what our farmers have been saying for the last 4 months.
We've been getting all your rain. It's been really a rainy season here.
Oh,
unusually
not here.
So
we couldn't
we
get
got
rain,
your rain.
if you did 16 rain dances, and so yeah, it's been absolute drought. So this morning we have a very special guest, all the way from Karuga. Ha ha ha. Our I'm a firm believer. Reading history is all right, but talking to somebody who was there, it's a little bit different. So without further ado, welcome, Joseph.
Greetings from the future. Yeah.
Welcome, Joseph.
From a country that is in a different time zone, even historically, I would say sometimes.
Just a tad.
And Mrs. Canuck has a good point. You said this morning?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's probably evening for Joseph.
Yeah.
Past 8 p.m. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's afternoon for me, but the coffee hasn't kicked in, so it's still, what the hell time is it?
I got some caffeine, so hopefully
yes.
Hopefully I can stay awake here.
They tell me to stay away
The
from.
real caffeine here.
Yeah, me too. Coffee. I have it on tap. Even though they yell at me for that too, but that's besides the point. So take a quick check through the chat, see who's all here. Of course, my better half, Miss Canuck, is here while she's working and trying not to kill stupid people. John DeMarco is here. Admiral Saval. And the Random Menace, of course, Joseph. And who else do we have in chat? Oh, Eastland Burkholder is here. Very, very cool. Yeah. Eastland Burkholder definitely put some very interesting things on Facebook as pictures. Very interesting. Anyway.
I think you meant Aravic Saunders here.
Oh.
Not Admiral.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Aravic Saunders. There we go.
Welcome,
that and I go fucking. Like I said, I haven't had enough coffee yet. My coffee to brain ratio is not exactly 100%.
And we have Colin P here as well. Welcome.
Oh, Colin P. Smith. Yes, I need to talk to you because I have thoughts of live streams for future. But anyway, so how are you doing, Joseph?
All good. For me, the workday is over, so...
Yeah, so now you're just chilling.
I'm just chilling here, yeah.
So is that real leather or pleather behind you?
Leather. Real leather.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That's why I have to have an AC here in this room, because it's upstairs, right below the roof, and it's getting hot here. And you don't want to get stuck on a leather sofa.
No.
No.
That's that. Or you don't want it in direct sunlight and then sit on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I used to have leather seats in my van. That was not fun on a hot day. If you didn't put that sunscreener up on the main window, holy hell, it was like sitting on lava.
I know.
But, all right, so yeah, I need to talk to you. Be afraid.
It's not that bad, Colin. Really.
Yeah, it's not that bad.
You'll survive it. It.
Yeah, unlike anybody else I put on a radio show in a boat. They usually don't survive it.
Right.
Mountains of Elysium, welcome. All right, so to kind of the heart of the matter, why I have you on. Especially in the modern day, they love to yell everything is communist, and they have no fucking clue what they're talking about 90% of the time.
Pretty much no, because everything that sounds like this is like communist or socialist or whatever, people who are screaming that they would like to live in such a regime or in such a country, they never lived in such a country.
No, no, they did not.
That's
However,
the
our
funniest
guest
thing.
today has.
Yes, it was really only 14 years of my life. The first
Yeah, only
14 years of
14. You know,
only
no
the
big.
first 14 years of my life, but still, basically, the biggest fun was not necessarily right after World War II here in the country, when obviously Slovakia, where I am based, became the part of the Eastern Bloc after they decided that, okay, how do we split Europe? But the biggest fun began actually in '68.
Okay.
1968. That was the because everything because obviously right after the war, everything became basically under the Russian influence or Soviet influence.
Yeah.
And in the early '60s, the communist regime started a little bit loosen up. It was they even called it a socialism with a human face.
Okay.
Literally socialism with a human face.
Well, yeah, you gotta spin propaganda somehow.
And but the thing was that really at the time the people in the once again, it was the Czechoslovak Socialistic Republic at the time. So there was the federal government for Czech Republic and Slovakia sitting in Prague, and then there was as well something like the Slovak government that was responsible then. Let's call it a local government, despite it was for the whole Slovak part of Czechoslovakia. And they were very, very, very open in terms of opening up to the West.
Okay.
So, and
they were allowed to have that position.
Yes, because when you look at all the countries that were in the communist bloc here in Central Europe, basically Slovakia was a little bit less, but it was only tiny difference, less under the influence of the really brutal communist regime, because that one was directed into Prague. Yeah. And then there was Yugoslavia. That was the country that was basically falling under Russian influence or Soviet influence, but they were always opposing that regime.
Yeah.
So even something like traveling to those friendly countries, when you wanted to travel to Yugoslavia, it was pretty hard.
Yeah.
And what happened in '68? It was in August '68. We will celebrate. We will have once again now on 28th of August. The Warsaw Pact basically under the Soviet leadership, the Hungarian, Polish, and East German basically armies came into the country based on it was called an invitation letter from the big communist bigheads in Prague.
Yeah.
And basically they started occupation of the country. And it was literally a war in the streets. There were tanks rolling in the streets, and I know that my mother was 17 at the time.
Okay.
So, and she was telling me stories how she got her first and only slap in the face from her father, because she was out in the streets looking at the tanks, and there was a report that a 17-year-old girl got shot. Yeah, and obviously nothing like mobile phones or contacting somebody at the time. No. So when she came home a few hours later, they were so afraid of her for her life.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Colin, 1968. That's the.
Yeah, so that's
That was the
when the
year.
Soviet Union decided, okay, now that we've buttered you up, now we're just going to we're going to take the glove off, and now there's no more
No,
there's no
they
more
saw
nice.
they saw how everything was opening up to the west.
Yeah.
So they decided like no.
Yeah, no, this is not going to happen. So they had
Yeah.
they had somebody on the take write a stupid
Yeah.
letter so that they had something to see. They asked us to come in. Yeah, that
A few
old
years
line.
prior, something similar happened to Hungary actually. So Hungary was already under the more tightened regime.
Yeah.
But now it happened to Czechoslovakia. There are they have still historical recordings from the local radio stations how they were reporting about what is happening, and then basically radio silence, and 30 minutes later, welcome our friends from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it was like, oh well, damn. I guess all that freedom stuff talk just went out the window because they got big guns, and they're not afraid to use them.
No.
Stalin was definitely not afraid to use them.
No, and neither, and even after Stalin was basically after his death, and despite he was disgruntled in the big picture,
Yeah,
his legacy was always there.
yeah.
So it never went away, despite he was partially erased even from history books and
Well,
everything.
yeah, because the guy who took over wanted to put a better smiley face on the
that was the era of Khrushchev and those guys. Yeah, so
another person who was never supposed to be leader that became leader. Stalin was never supposed to be leader but became leader because he knew how to stab people in the back.
Pretty much.
But, Slovakia and that whole area. Sorry, Jeff.
No, go ahead.
Always really interested me because a lot of people think that Slovakia and that area really got the hard shake once the Soviet Union took over. But in reality, that area of the world had been kicked in the head even before World War One.
All the time, because it was.
Who's conquering us today seems to be the I mean, you go right through Germany, through World War One, you go through what happened between the Ottoman Empire and Germany and all the stuff they did, and then you guys finally get it always reminded me of, I don't know if anybody saw this goofy cartoon, but the old Aladdin movies. In one of them, and I can't remember which one it was, but there was an old guy, and the going bit through the whole movie was he was an old guy and he was just in a cage, like a prison.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout the movie, he'd get released. And then somehow, some way, he'd fall right back into the damn cell. So it'd be, I'm free. Ah, dang it. Which basically describes that whole area between 1914 and the Soviet bloc.
Right.
I see there here and there a few questions popping up here in the chat.
Yeah.
Let me.
I was going to ask you one. Eastland Burkholder wants to know if you could trust your neighbors back then.
Very interesting, a very good question. Actually, no. You could trust some of your friends, but there were situations where people couldn't even trust their families, because the Secret Service was basically hiring people to basically snitch on others.
Yeah.
Which was pretty common thing everywhere. You had it in Eastern Germany, in basically all those countries. So
it's a tried and tested way of doing things. I mean, they do it to this day.
Yeah, of course.
They just don't pay you anymore. Always good. Or threaten to kill you. One of the
That,
two.
that was the other thing. And if you were talking talking crap about the government and about the regime, you ended up in Czech uranium mines.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah. Or, we'll send you for
Sounds
this
familiar.
wonderful vacation to somewhere called Siberia.
That was less the case here because
Yeah, well, Russia.
there was this
within
rich,
Russia, there was this wonderful thing called, well, you've won a one-way trip to Siberia. enjoy your trip. Yeah.
mountains. Yes, Twitter before Twitter, pretty much. So. Yeah, that was not nice, and there was even something like there were on the not shortwave radio but long wave on the long waves there were like two radio stations, very popular underground ones. The first one was Voice of America, and the second one I am not sure, it's probably known as a even in the United States to some people as because those were really radio station. It was a radio station transmitting from the United States in local languages, in multiple local languages for all the countries. And the second one was what was it? Voice of America and Free Europe was the second one. I don't know where the second one was based.
I think I've heard of both of them actually.
And
the second one might have been UK,
and
England.
probably UK, And the second
it has a British sounding name to it.
And I remember that my grandparents were listening to the radio, like they started with the broadcast around 10 p.m. So the whole flat went dark.
Okay.
Everything like let's go. They were pretending that they were sleeping.
Yeah.
The radio in the bedroom, literally like children when they are hiding while they are, I don't know, probably my generation reading books under the blankets and looking at phones, and they were listening to on a very low volume to the radio station. What was literally happening outside. This is how we knew that something happened in Chernobyl, for example.
Okay.
Because
they're not going to report that.
Because the real broadcast, what happened there, came like 2 or 3 days later.
Yeah. So we do have a question, and I think it's a really interesting one. From Eastern Burkholder, they want to know, were mental institutions used to silence people?
To a certain point, yes, as well. Basically, they used every single method of oppression that you can imagine.
Yeah. So easiest way to make sure that people don't listen to you is to think to make you sound crazy. That's used today too. It's a very handy tool.
Yeah.
History repeats itself.
Yeah. If you don't study it enough, yes.
You are doomed to repeat all the mistakes. Yeah, exactly.
Indeed.
So once 68 happens, do they still try to do the old, we're your friends, or is that all done now? And then from there on, it's do as you're told, or you will, you're not going to like what happens.
Probably the second part, yeah.
Well, so there was the romance was over. It was just okay. Now listen here, you stupid little shits. You're going to do what I tell you.
Yeah, pretty much. And this is exactly what happened in '68. And then everything was in a very bad situation. For example, my mother's father, who was an electrical engineer, lost his job, and for the rest of his life, he could be only a waiter. He was working as a waiter until he retired.
Wow.
So, and
what a waste.
And those are like funny situations. I can tell you that, for example, when Eastland was asking about neighbors talking about or how the state police was working. I have a very nice example. My uncle, my mother's brother, was working. He was in a he studied at a military school, and then he became an military attaché to the U.S. embassy, to the Slovak embassy in the United States. So he was for 8 years in the United States, despite he had very good results in his work life, and he was one of a very few exceptions where he wasn't a member of the Communist Party, and he was sent abroad to Washington, D.C., and he was there at this Czechoslovak embassy at the time, and he was like, yeah, I was basically a military attaché. It's basically like secret agent.
Yeah.
There was nothing secret, and his words, there was nothing secret about me being there, because let me show you something. And he showed us pictures, because he was there with his family, wife, and then 2 kids. And he showed us pictures from when they went to Florida to Disney. Is it Disneyland, right, in Florida, or Disney World? I don't know.
I can't keep them straight.
So basically,
whichever.
They went to visit the mouse, and he showed us like pictures they took on a film, and in every single picture there are shadows of secret agents of the United States shadowing him. So, so he was like, there was nothing actually I could do in all those years.
Yeah.
But
that must have been very risky, because doing that kind of job, I mean, you step out of line, whether you're part of the party or not, you may not be coming home.
It was risky, but it was one of those better paying jobs. And the fun part is,
well, of course,
that he got everything official was covered by the embassy, but he got his salary paid out, and he got something like 20% of his salary in the United States, and 80% of the salary went to an account here in the country. And it wasn't in the local currency. Then Czechoslovak crown was the name of the currency, but in a specific currency that was created. It was basically like bones. I mean, like when you have bearer bones in a bank. So those were like, with that money, he could even either exchange it in a bank for the local currency when he was here, like visiting, or when he came back, or he could use it in a diplomatic store. Those diplomatic stores were those stores where you could find Western goods. Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember it was 87. It was in 87. That was the year, I think. It was his. He came back in 89. So he was then visiting us, and we wanted to buy our first color TV.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you wanted to buy a color TV at the time, you would basically have to pay it and wait till you get it, and maybe it would take a year, because you could get only certain like local brands of TVs.
Yeah.
The fun part is the biggest electronic manufacturer at the time in Czechoslovakia was named Tesla.
Oh yes.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
I wonder why.
So, yeah. Go.
So Colin P asks, and it is kind of interesting, because you do hear a lot about them. Many times somebody talks about the communist bloc, about the KGB. How prevalent were they, or did they have their own branch, like the Stasi or something other, or was it just we're sending the KGB and deal?
We had our local one. But obviously everything was closely followed by officials from the KGB, being present all the time. We had the Soviet armies here, literally, like the United States have. I don't know. Let's say bases within the NATO. You know, like
Yeah.
NATO has bases in all the countries. The
Right.
Soviet Union had military bases around their region of influence everywhere. And the last military guys actually left the country in the 91 or 92. The last soldiers. They were basically moved back to Soviet Union because before that, obviously the wall fell in, and all the regimes basically broke down in 89.
Yeah. So
Well,
how
late
old were
89.
you when the wall fell in Germany?
14. I was born in 76, so
Okay. So
Yeah.
describe that. So you've lived 14 years of your life
Yeah.
under the communist rules. So you're
Yeah.
used to that. And
Give
then all
me
of a
two.
sudden,
Yeah.
how fast did it spread, or was that a slow burn?
I will go back to it. Just two sentences to finish the story with the TV, because that
Yeah.
was the funniest one,
Yeah, go ahead.
the funniest part. And basically, my mother bought basically or exchanged Slovak crowns for those special bonds, so that we could buy the TV in a diplomatic store.
Okay.
And they were supposed to deliver the TV the next day. So we came home, and we opened the door to the flat. We came in, and the phone rang, and it was the secret police asking my mother where she got the money from,
Oh,
the special
wow.
currency.
Oh.
So it was literally it was only landlines, obviously.
Yeah.
So they called the landline. We didn't close the door behind us, and the phone rang.
Wow. So they
So-
had a
so,
truck
yeah.
watching.
Amazing.
They had a
Just
truck
to
or something watching.
so literally, and she told them, okay, that her brother is working for the embassy, so they gave us peace. But I can tell you that this is how it worked. And going back to your question, how it was after basically what happened in October in Berlin.
Yeah.
Here in Czechoslovakia, basically, the whole fall of the regime began way earlier. Basically, I think you were covering it as well with Chernobyl.
Yeah.
It was so expensive that it basically broke the Soviet Union. That one.
Well,
that
trying to
one-
keep up with the states and militarily did
Right.
that too, but-
It was on the one side, it was Reagan basically draining the Soviet resources
Yeah.
with the military on the one side, and on the other side it was literally the final nail in the coffin was
Yeah.
Chernobyl. Because right now, when the economy of the Soviet Union wasn't way that strong as they pretended.
No, it
So-
never was.
So it literally those were the things. Plus, Gorbachev came to power basically in Russia with his glasnost, and then Mr. Gorbachev tear down the wall.
Yeah.
The
Right,
famous
right.
speech. So basically a year before, so in '88, we had here, and it was organized by the church, by the Christian church. It was organized something like a peaceful march in, I think it was in, funny enough, it was in March. So because I know that it was cold outside. And it was like people were basically just peacefully walking in the streets with candles, and the police came with water cannons, and they were talking about riots and everything. There wasn't not even a single loud voice, because it was supposed to be a silent,
Vigilant.
Right.
yeah.
But of course, they've got to be able to explain why they have these tanks rolling up. So
Yeah,
they were very violent. Yeah, they were violent. Yeah. So we just put the the tanks and the men with big guns are there for your protection.
Yes, exactly.
That old line.
In Poland, it started even earlier. When you think about when I think about it, in Poland it started even in the first half of the 80s. You have to remember that Poland is a very Christian country.
Yes.
In my liberal opinions, even a little bit over the board.
A little overboard, yeah.
They go a little overboard with it, but religion was very strong with them all the time, and they started with breaking everything down in the first half of the 80s. So it started crumbling slowly in the whole region, and basically what happened in October in Germany and in November, basically in the rest of the in the rest of the region, was inevitable.
Yeah,
because
Poland to some degree, religious-wise anyway, has always been Italy light.
yes,
Because
pretty much.
you go Italy and you talk bad about the Catholic Church, you might want to find a new home. But so they've always been kind of like, especially religious ways, they're Italy light. They're not as
And
heavy
just when you
Italy.
think about it, they had their pope because John Paul II was a Polish priest.
Yeah.
He
Very
came
true.
from
So
he was from Poland.
They got skin in the game, yeah. So growing up, did you ever have like moments where especially once you hit those rebellious, lovely teenage years, did you ever have like friends just disappear for a week?
No, this didn't happen to me, but I know about friends' parents disappearing here and there.
Okay. So like
Here
they go
and
to
there.
work one day and then dad's my dad got called away to a business meeting and he'll be away for a while or whatever line he got told.
It happened. It happened in certain cases, and especially despite my parents are divorced since I was a little boy, but my father was working as with military orchestra.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
and just when you think about it, who did they put into something like a military orchestra? People that were not they didn't trust with a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, really, the people that were considered unreliable.
Yeah.
And from stories that he was telling me, that there were here and there people disappearing, like
Yeah, it would just be like they'd show up to work one day and
yeah.
then you need to come with us.
So yeah, that was the fun thing. So those things were happening. I didn't hear that many stories, but the few that I heard were unsettling, I have to say.
Yeah, well,
imagine
it
so.
wouldn't be something that a lot of people would want to talk about because then it kind of if you talk about a bad thing, sometimes that can bring a spotlight on you. Well, how did you know that happened? Kind of thing, right? Wouldn't that like you really tongue in cheek, and you had to be careful what you said or who you said it to because
and I had to be especially quiet because I was learning foreign languages wasn't a big thing at the time when I was in the early 80s when I started attending school. So but my mother saw that okay, the boy doesn't have that many talents, but languages are one of them, one of those talents that we should develop. So
yeah,
she put me in she wanted me to attend a school where they taught German.
okay,
And it was a very elite school. And basically I didn't get it immediately, despite years later I heard that I had the best test results when they were basically testing the kids if they have the potential to be in that class, that I had the best results from the whole school in a very long time. And they didn't take me with in the first place. My mother had to write some letters and everything. Her then boss asked her if she is willing to basically become a member of the Communist Party. And my mother said yes. So they got me into that school, and then when the paperwork came, she never signed it.
Oh yeah. It's like, will it help my son? Yes. Okay, then I'll do it.
Yeah, but she never signed it because I was already in that school, and the thing, since it was an elite school, I can tell you that I had like my classmates, basically 50% of the names you would find on the high-ranking Communist Party party lists, like either parents or grandparents. Who is who of the Communist Party, exactly. So I had to be very careful about what I was saying.
Because
definitely,
if anybody will rat you out, they will. Because then it'll better, because it's all jockeying for position. If they give information to their parents find a use for it, and it could mean a promotion or a better job or what have you.
So did anything come of your mother not signing that paper?
Yes. She had to change. She was working as a teacher in one school, and she had to change the schools. She had to change the schools to a less attractive part of the city.
To kind of get the spotlight off.
Yes, exactly. So that happened. It had zero influence on her salary or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the
whispers started.
It wasn't pleasant. But we managed. I can tell you that we didn't have I'm not saying that we were poor, but we didn't have definitely enough money, and she had to have like side jobs.
Yeah.
Just to bring us up, because parents divorced, and she was basically raising us alone. So she had like side jobs as well, and she was like,
alone would have been hard during the Soviet bloc, wouldn't it?
You know what? One thing.
It is like we say that now. Well, they were divorced, and nobody bats an eyelash.
It was
then. That was
depending
on where you were. That was
it was a stigma of coming from a broken family.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a stigma, definitely, at the time.
Like we look at it now, and it's just we don't even bat an eyelash. But back then, that was a completely different ball game.
Colin, I see here the question if Czech Republic is more Catholic or Orthodox. Catholic, definitely. Orthodox you find only in the eastern part of Slovakia, because we are very close then to the Ukrainian border.
Okay.
Because so this is then the Orthodox part, but Czech Republic is one of the most atheistic countries in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you're really
just to put it into a perspective.
Yeah.
So you learned German.
So I learned German basically from it started in the 3rd grade. Yeah.
Yeah. So where we would learn French, you learn German.
And when did you start learning English?
Oh, very late. Okay, it was basically very late. Middle school. So with the school system, how it works here, you go for 8 years. Now it's 9 years. You have the basic grammar school, basically 1st grade till your 8th grade, and then you go to either basically a high school, right? It will be then high school. Yeah.
Right.
High school, and then you have either high schools or then you go for learning for a special profession. I don't know how the different types of schools are named in English, but after basically the first years when I went to high school, I started with English. But the fun part is, and there was a question: was Russian taught as a second language, rather like French? It was mandatory. It was mandatory.
Yeah.
Grades 5 and above. It was mandatory. But the fun part is, I had it only in grades 5 through 8, because then I went to high school, and then the year basically I was in the last I was in the 8th grade when the regime changed. So my first year of high school was the first school year that starts in September that was completely under the new regime. So basically after the fall of communism.
Okay.
When and then they gave us the option. Okay, you speak already German. To a certain degree, you can either continue with Russian or you can start with English. So I wanted to keep the German, so I went further with English. But the problem was, every single teacher that was teaching English at the time was basically like a few pages in the book ahead of us.
Okay.
So during the 4 years of high school, I never learned properly English.
No, because it was the blind teaching the blind to walk.
Yeah, pretty much. And so basically, the level so that I could communicate in English like I'm doing it right now, only when I started working at my current employer, where I am right now for 18 years. So basically, 18 years ago, I could say, was the time when I started to use English in some way.
Yeah. Well, so here's another thing that kind of fascinates me, because when the communist bloc is there, and then when it's not, what are like some of the things, like under communist rule, there is no way in hell you're doing this or buying this, because there were certain things you couldn't buy, right? If you bought it, you would be.
There were only certain things we could buy.
Yeah. So what was like the biggest changes that way? Like there were certain, obviously there were things you could not do. And I mean, the obvious one is you can't protest because you may get shot.
Getting my first VCR, getting my first CD player, getting the first microwave in 1990.
Yeah.
Like this. Those were literally things that I saw on TV, because we, despite all the attempts of the regime before, we were so close to the Austrian border, the western part of Slovakia where I live, that we could that we got the Austrian TV signal over.
Okay.
So this is something where I saw all those nice things that we didn't have.
Yeah. It was like, that would be cool. But so were there anything like other, like commercially, that like if somebody bought during the communist bloc, that they wouldn't be able to like just display it? It would have to be, kept in
VCR,
a room.
a stupid VCR. And once again, I have a story here. There were certain families had people working for. I don't know how it was even possible, but they had connections to the West. Either there was like part of the family left the country before 1968.
Okay.
And so they were sending through very weird channels stuff over.
Okay.
Or people could work to a certain degree in let's say Austria.
Okay.
Or there was like contraband coming over from Yugoslavia at the time, because they were really the black sheep of the communist countries.
Yeah.
And it is the most interesting history, I think, from all the ex-Eastern Bloc countries. I think Yugoslavia is the one with the wildest history, I think. Yeah. And so many things came from over there. And I can tell you that when we were visiting like friends of friends to have something like watch parties.
Yeah.
and they brought in and they literally were hiding the VCR because
Okay.
it was something like I think like a Sony VCR, which was something unheard of, having
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
one here.
imagine.
They were hiding it, and they were literally connecting into the TV when we were watching a movie, and those were the times when I saw first time the Jaws, for example. I remember that
Okay.
one very vividly in the 80s. So despite Jaws is a Steven Spielberg movie, and Steven Spielberg movies for some reason were always allowed in the communist bloc. Those were the very few movies that were allowed in the
That's
communist
interesting.
bloc. And
I wonder why.
I don't know, because I can tell you that I saw in the theaters E.T. in literally probably I think less than a year since it was released in the United States. I
A
saw
lot of those
E.T.
films that Spielberg did were forward thinking. You would think that those types of movies would not be allowed.
I don't know. Indiana Jones, for example.
It was probably something as stupid as somebody in the communist hierarchy really liked them.
Could be.
So they got the stamp of approval, because that's how stupid it would be. It's like, well, we don't like that, so get rid of it.
And
sound familiar? But that's the reality. You know, if they didn't like it, if somebody up, you know, that had power didn't like it, it didn't get shown, it didn't get talked about.
We got enough, like,
literally.
French movies. French movies were not a problem. Italian movies, certain German movies were not a problem. They were shown here. But mostly either it was either historical or fantasy, or movies that showed some type of Western decadence.
Okay, so something that puts the Western in a bad light will be.
Those were like those movies where. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So here's another question, because I mean, just thinking about it, because there's some things that I look at, like when they're doing like history documentaries on World War I, or you know, and they're talking, and they'll go, and the British troops stormed here, and I'm like, hey assholes, that was the Canadians. We're not the British. Fuck off. You know, do you ever look back at some like
who's on your money? Who's on your money?
Yeah, the Queen of England. She's a figurehead. She's a figurehead now. She hasn't had power since Victoria. Anyway,
I'm just kidding.
Have you ever looked back at some of the things that were released, like especially by the Soviet bloc at the time, where they're describing, you know, your area of the world and how it is under Soviet rule, and you just look back and go, "You are so full of shit." Because they would, the Soviets were great at, you know, well, look at what we've done to, you know, since we have been in power, blah, blah, blah. This is the greatest place on earth, yada, yada, yada. Have you ever looked back at some of those and gone, that didn't happen? That was like three people that had that. What the fuck?
Yeah, pretty much. But and the funniest thing is that here and there, there were like even in the evening news, here and there, situations slipped by the officials, and then you could see stuff like when they were saying like, yes, you on the one side you heard like we are producing that much corn, or that much of I don't know, whatever.
Whatever
there was, the numbers were like, we are filling the plants to 150%, and then you watch the evening news, and there is something like, there is a shortage on toilet paper. You know?
Yeah.
And it was like for no reason. No reason, stuff like how good are we doing compared to the rotten West, and then you are waiting in a line for Cuban oranges that were dry as fuck, because it took them probably half a year to come
Yeah, to
from
get there,
Cuba to Eastern Europe. Yeah.
Only
Oh,
half a year.
and or bananas were something that we got only for Christmas or so. You
Yeah.
know, this type of okay. So the weirdest thing, and then you really see what is on TV, and then you compare it to the reality when you can go when there was a season of something you could buy only a certain amount of. You know, like 5 kilo potatoes for because there is shortage on potatoes for some strange reasons in this area, geographical area, where we have plants that are completed to 150%. We have shortage of stuff like potatoes, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. So, so every, I guess, portion of the Soviet bloc has their main export that they would, that the Soviets would be. This is what we want. You can have 2% of it, and we want the rest. What was Slovakia's major contribution towards?
Despite Slovakia was treated very unfair during the Czechoslovakian part, in one particular area, which was the moneymaker, it was weapons production.
Okay.
That was completely moved over to Czech Republic, but metallurgy was, when we are talking about really something like the biggest things, was probably metallurgy. It was dirty, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a country where you can dump all that crap.
Yeah.
So, and especially something like aluminium, or then iron was. We have like in the eastern part of Slovakia, there is like U.S. Steel owns it right now. It's a big steel factory. It's owned by U.S. Steel right now, and I know that they are trying to sell it. And now our government was, even this year, they were already in the United States to negotiate some different terms about it. So this was something that was produced here. And now, for example, but it has as well a good point. Slovakia is the largest car producer in the world per capita.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I mean, like, you go all the way back to just out of World War I, and one of the
before World War I, there was no Slovakia, there was no Czech Republic. It was the Austrian-Hungarian monarchy.
World War I, and out of that, you'd get like some of the tank production was done in Czechoslovakia, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, but that was done in the Czech part. Literally, Slovakia was treated basically until the end of World War II as the rural part of the country.
Yeah.
This is for the Czech Republic. Here we have the good production, and then there's Slovakia, the
little brother that we have to take to the store.
Yeah, pretty much. So that's why actually the governments then decided that we are going to break up into two countries. That happened in 1993. They decided 1993 and as of 1st of January 1994, basically the countries separated. For some time we were using for about a year we were still using the same currency with something like a special stamps on the banknotes that this is the Slovak and this is the Czech. Czech portion of the currency.
Okay. So from, I guess, how long did it take after the fall for everything to settle down?
31 years and still
going.
Still going. Yeah, pretty much. You know what? Because usually what happens, and this is and I completely understand why, for example, nobody's trying to tear down the regime in North Korea because the situation there is bad now. I can tell you, it would be way worse removing the
for-
regime there.
For a modern look at Iraq.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It was
Pretty-
bad
That's-
with
Yeah, yeah.
Hussein in power. It's worse with him gone. Because you
Power
have this
vacuum.
power vacuum, right?
Power
Yeah.
vacuum. Yeah, and this
And,
is
and
some-
it was the same thing when the Soviet Union fell. You had a major power vacuum.
Hmm.
What happened here compared just look at what happened to Yugoslavia basically with the whole war conflict there. That was basically the first half of the 90s there. Here the fall of the Iron Curtain, as we call it, was called Velvet Revolution,
Okay.
because everything was without without any violence coming from the government.
Okay.
Because it started with riots in Prague on the 17th of November of 1989, but it was one evening of student riots, and then basically it started snowballing. Everything started snowballing, and basically within one month the government was gone, and there were the first free elections in early 1990. Don't ask me if it was January or February.
Yeah.
So literally we are talking weeks. We are
Yeah.
talking weeks
That's-
till everything came down. The fun part was obviously all the dissidents came out of hiding, and Václav Havel, who was very prominent, he was an author, and he was basically suppressed all the time, became the president of Czechoslovakia, Czechoslovak Federation, as we were
Okay.
called at the time, for the time being. And yeah, pretty much what happened was this: when you call it the power vacuum, everything that belonged to the state started to crumble. And
Yeah.
people who were then, let's say, who was the former director of the I don't know, the iron works, the steel plant, became, for some strange reason, he was he had good connection to the new government, and all the corruption, jazz and fun started.
Okay.
So basically, the first half of the 90s was economic rise, coming with, and what followed was a huge downfall. And what was her name? Very famous. She was working as an ambassador in the Czech Republic, from United States. I completely blanking out on her name. She called the Slovak government in '98 that we are the black hole of Europe.
Oh. Whoops.
That and the government, but that was the time where the government that was actually very popular in the early 90s, and the people, despite you had different parties, because the system is basically multiple parties, not like, let's say, in the United States where you have two parties. It wasn't as bad as in Venezuela. Venezuela is something that was we never came even close to that. What's happening in Venezuela? But
Joseph,
definitely,
I think you were talking about Madeleine Albright.
Madeleine Albright, yeah, that's
Yes.
her.
Yeah, I had to look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
she didn't piss anybody off ever.
Nah.
Madeleine Albright, yeah, but then it became basically new elections. Then different new politicians came and created a government, and basically the early 2000s and the first decade of the 2000s was basically an economic climb, steady climb, and we are basically still, despite then we had like for 12 years. Right now it changed a year. Basically, with coming of the virus, we had new elections and the government changed, but once again we had a little bit of criminal government with leftists. They were still living from the reforms that happened in the since 1998 till 2010.
Okay.
And the politicians from that era are still looked upon as the best ones that we had, because they were really professionals in their areas of expertise.
Okay.
So it wasn't just somebody who was like, okay, very populist and who came to power. And now it's a little bit crazy what's happening here, but it's still, we are still on the good side. Yeah.
So now that enough time, like as time passes, people forget things. Is there any, I guess, politically, is there any movement that, we had it good back in the good old days. We should,
This
we should get
sentiment,
something.
yeah, something like, yeah,
'Cause
something
in
like.
Russia, you get that still, and
Funny enough, you get it more in the Czech Republic, because there is still the Communist Party. There is still in a part of their government, a very
Okay.
tiny, small part, but they still have
but
it.
it's still there.
They are still there. Here in Slovakia, there are obviously those small groups who are crying, but how good it was in during the communism. But usually, those are the people who never made it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or the people who made it and then had all their power taken away, and
No,
No?
those not. No, because everybody who made it and lost the power are either living somewhere else
Yeah,
or are in jail.
yeah, one of the two, right? Yeah.
So yeah,
So
but
you don't
but
hear
I,
from them very much.
but I can tell you that there are now being literally a mafia. Mafia was created here in the early 90s, and you had all the literally the Wild West, everything. The 90s were pretty wild. The 90s were
Okay.
pretty wild, and there is still the remnants of certain crimes that are being still uncovered to this day. What happened in the 90s?
Wow.
So
Well, just gonna take a quick second to acknowledge Bird of Prey 5, Kapla. Welcome.
hi, Bird.
To that.
Welcome,
And
Bird.
also, Purple Valkyrie was here earlier. I didn't get a chance. We were kind of all yapping. So, and Mark Namefly Tired showed up too. So,
Yeah.
Welcome, folks. Hope you're enjoying the conversation.
And I've been trying to greet them as they come in to chat.
I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, you
that's
are
great.
not.
That's
We
to be
asked you to
honest,
talk.
I've been wanting to do this for about a year. So
I know.
And even last Monday we were supposed to go, and then I decided to go fishing. Go figure. But
Bird of Prey
it's always
says
intrigued me. Sorry, go ahead.
hashtag fake news, no mafia in Slovakia.
Right now, the mafia is in the government. No, just joking.
Well,
I
they're
didn't
always
say
in the government.
for the
What are you
record,
talking
it was a joke, and I didn't say it. Please don't ring on my door.
Yeah. Wasn't me.
Wasn't me. By the way, it shows that I'm in the future. It's already dark outside.
Yeah, exactly. But
The question is, which year?
yeah,
Which year? Compared to the Western, probably 2005.
Okay.
we're a little behind. It's all good. We didn't have nice things for a while. there was
we
these
didn't.
tanks
We
that
di-
stopped us.
But you know what? Just imagine one thing. Basically, in my teens, I could live through 2 decades, through the 80s and through the 90s at once.
Yeah,
It was such a influx of impulses, information, everything.
Was there a transition time? Because I know obviously if you live long enough, where you have these rules that you live by, and you live a certain way. Once everything starts opening, and the freedom of information to a degree starts getting more and more, is there was there any moments where you were like, oh, I really shouldn't be doing this, and then you had to remind yourself, oh no, I'm allowed to do this now?
Not for me, because I was literally 13, 14 when
Yeah.
everything started, but definitely for the generation of the parents,
Yeah, so they're
like my parents and grandparents even more, because just when you think about it, the grandparents are the generation that was born before World War II. Yeah.
yeah.
So they basically lived through all that shit that came from World War II. They had the whole 40 years of communism.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it was a little harder for them. Like you'd be
So
looking
the
at something and-
adjustment is still there. Yeah.
yeah, because they
Was there
the
the adjustment was there.
yeah.
The generations of people like let's say like my mother, she was what is it like in her late 30s at the time. Yeah, was everything was just fine.
Okay.
The adjustment was fine, and once again she was working as a teacher. The fun part is obviously all the principals of the schools were were members of the Communist Party.
Oh yes.
They were gone. They were gone by
Yeah.
the time.
Poof, gone.
And she applied at the time to become basically she applied for a principal position, and there was literally an interview process and everything with it, and she got the job. And the fun part is her former employer, so the principal from the school that forced her to sign the paperwork for the Communist Party that I was talking earlier,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
came to her applying for a job.
Job. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Roles have switched now.
Yeah. How the wheel turns.
Yeah.
And nope, she was gone.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
because I mean, that's got to be, like there's got to. Was there a feeling of, well, no, whoa, don't do this. It's a trap. Because obviously they would do that. They would dangle something, and then you go for it, and they'd go, gotcha, kind of thing.
No,
during the communists.
it didn't happen because as I told you, the switch it took literally few months till
Okay.
everything was basically done, and even the more open communists that in the early 1990s became part of the new government, the
Okay.
new democratic government.
Yeah.
They were afraid. They were afraid of forbidding something, and especially just imagine that the borders opened. I can tell you that the sleepy villages that are bordering on Slovakia, of Austrian sleeping villages, they became one of the richest parts of Austria just because of the money that the people from Slovakia and Czech Republic brought over. And when you look at the map, you have basically a large part of southern Czech Republic and a small part of Slovakia bordering to Austria. And what you have on the borders, usually not Slovakia is an exception because we are literally, as a capital city, is on the borders to Hungary and Austria, but just because of the monarchy and the Danube flowing through the city. So literally historically going 1,300 years back, just to put that into perspective. But usually at the borders you have smaller villages, and those areas became very rich, literally through the money. And since we became the members of the EU, and the Schengen space, which means that there is no borders actually. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a mix. Basically, half of the villages were the real estate in a city, in a capital city, is way more expensive than a house in a sleepy village at the borders. So
Okay.
so I can tell you that the villages are basically 50 to 60% right now Slovak or Czechs living
Okay.
there. Just because how it worked then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The way it
Now,
shook up.
you mentioned the EU. When you joined the EU, were there any people that were worried that it might be like the old communist regime?
No.
No?
We joined the EU because there was a referendum about it.
Okay.
A countrywide referendum if we want to join it. And the referendum, how it works here in Slovakia is you just to make the referendum valid, 50% of all population has to vote. 50% of population over 18, because then you
Right.
has to vote, and if the result of those 50% is 50% or more, only then the referendum is valid and the government has to do something with it. It was, I think, something over 60% people who came, or 60, 70, I don't know. It was a large number of people that came
it
to
was
the referendum,
resounding. Yes.
and the resounding majority voted for the EU at the
Well,
time.
Colin, as a follow-up, Colin P is asking, are there anybody that are wondering that now? You know, now that you've had the EU for many years.
Yes, there are voices, pretty much voices for the EU and against the EU, but the majority is still for the EU. But the main difference, and I understand that Colin is probably Colin, are you from the UK? I suppose so, because you said something earlier in the chat that I'm even in the future to you. Slovakia is still somebody who is receiving huge funds from the EU.
Yeah,
where
major opposers to it was
where
Britain,
the UK
and
was
Germany.
somebody who was paying in. Yes, UK
Germany
and Germany.
Germany and Britain.
Yeah.
Now Germany, because Britain's out of it.
Right.
So the sentiment is still pro EU. You have, of course, those smaller groups, but usually those are like the right wing radicals.
Okay.
And this is not the right wing how it is looked upon in the United States.
No.
This is literally. Can I say the N word? The German N word?
Yeah.
On your channel, those are really the neo-Nazis, those deranged ones who are opposing the NATO, because Russia and Putin are our friends.
Like I said, they long for the good old days.
But it is a small group, but they are very loud. Plus, when there were talks about Russians influencing U.S. media, trust me, it's happening everywhere. Something like this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
To a crazy degree, because then you go and then you say, then you look at certain things and you say, folks, critical thinking, please.
Yeah.
So now it is, but it is balanced. I have to say there is still the majority of the country is for all the for being. You know what? I'm so happy that we are part of the NATO, and especially once again we are bordering to Ukraine, and Ukraine lost Crimea to
Russia,
like in a heartbeat.
Right. Yeah.
And and everybody was like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? But everybody's afraid to go there and create something like a military conflict,
Yeah.
which is
Whereas
actually a good
an
thing. Please,
actual
nobody do
NATO
that.
nation, that's a declaration of war the minute you
Yeah.
put troops in.
Yes.
Pretty
yes.
much.
Yeah,
Pretty
so
much.
it's a little it's a nice little safety card. Um, uh,
Yeah. So, and Colin says here, yep, UK here, we escaped. Yeah, you did. You escaped. And I hate you because we are not getting your money.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, it's a different take because if it right now it's still a benefit, like to
It
your
is, but
country.
Slovakia is on is one of those countries that are literally our economy is growing even in the last year we were stagnating. We were stagnating, and now despite the whole crap is still continuing, we have a growth. We have
Yeah.
an economic growth
Which
here
could be
in the
dangerous
country.
because then there's a power shift because then you go from receiving payments to making the payments
And you know what? I
that's
wouldn't.
where the
And
issue.
you know what? I wouldn't mind it, even if we are still not in where we would balance it out.
Yeah,
But you know what? I wouldn't mind having the lifestyle of in let's say in those 20 years that it might happen, maybe shorter. Then I can retire on the level of a German retiree and not
Yeah.
somebody who cannot afford traveling somewhere.
yeah, because
When
that's the
retired.
big that's why there's the big push in Germany because they're you get they have more cannon fodder, they have more things
Yeah.
to use. Like
Because
we're spending all this money and we're not getting any benefit. What the hell? That's their main sticking point.
the benefit.
Whereas
Right.
it's not
The
the same
benefits
down here.
are there. The benefits, but the problem is the benefit doesn't appear where the losses are coming from.
Yeah.
You know, it appears somewhere else. It's a little bit more complicated. And I can tell you, I wouldn't mind becoming one day economically such a strong country that we wouldn't that the payments would stop. I wouldn't mind
Yeah.
it because it means that we on a level
Yeah, exactly.
where we don't need it.
Yeah.
And then we can
But
say, okay, let's support Bulgaria, Romania, and those
it's a
countries.
lot harder to do the propaganda for anti-EU in a country that benefits and it's clearly
Exactly.
benefiting.
And it's clearly
From
benefiting, yes.
Definitely.
So, and I can tell you, you would find people, even in my within my friends who are not the biggest fans. And you know what? I'm not the biggest fan of of certain policies, because what I like about the EU is free movement of people and goods.
Yeah.
Those are the two basic principles, and all the policies that are coming in, some of them are ridiculous. Some of them are really good because certain governments would become more totalitarian.
Okay.
So they are basically keeping certain leaders in check.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm talking about especially about Hungary and
Yeah,
Poland.
they're kept on a nice little leash.
The problem is in Hungary and Poland, the leaders are the prime ministers in both of the countries. They are kept on a leash, but those are a very angry bulldogs. I can tell you.
Yes.
So this is a very very tricky situation. What is good
A fine line.
and what is and what is not. You know what? I voted for a party that where the leader of the party even says that if the payments from the EU stopped, there would be less corruption. It was his sentence that because when you get money from the EU, a certain amount of the money gets lost somewhere. You know.
Yeah. It got lost in
That
Oh,
that
there
happens in government.
It was 1.2 billion. We only received like 1 billion. Where are the 200 million gone? You know.
Yeah. I think it got ate up in taxes, I think. But do check
Must
out my
be
new
it.
house.
Yeah, something like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Or I just
So
bought a whole bunch of stocks in this wonderful car company. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, for example, the biggest thing that is right now about what the responsible politicians are talking about right now is about we became the car manufacturer of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what we need more is R&D, research and development, and brain power and brain capacity. So they are now, for example, trying to support more the uh, uh, what are they called? They are called STEM, uh, like at the university. Those like scientific, mathematics, physics,
Yeah.
and those areas. Because how many social workers you need, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Don't just
So
get pigeonholed into one.
yeah, exactly. So this is right now where they are heading, uh, and still because at one point we were the cheap labor force
Yeah.
here in Europe.
Right.
Yeah, right now it is not like this. We
No.
are not no more the cheap labor force. We have but we have what we have good is we have specialists in many fields. And
Yeah.
let's say the car manufacturer, why did Jaguar come from UK to Slovakia? Why didn't go they to Romania or Bulgaria, where it would be probably way cheaper? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because the car industry and this and everything around it is already so developed here.
Yeah, it's built up. It would
It's
cost
built
more
up.
to move
Yeah.
than it would be
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not
Thank
only
you very
that, but
much,
I
Colin.
mean,
Thank you. Yeah. Science,
depending on the
technology,
type of
engineering, and
car, I
math.
mean, Jaguar has a reputation, right? So
Yeah.
they have to be able to.
You know
It'd be
what?
like Rolls
Koreans
Royce.
came.
Rolls Royce, you wouldn't want made in China snapped on the side
Yeah.
of it. I'm just saying,
That wouldn't
so
look good.
no, so they have that reputation of the to also uphold, and they've
Yeah.
probably built it into their sales pitch and yada yada yada. And it's always good to say, well, this factory has been here for 20 years or what have you, and etc.
And I don't know what Colin is referring. That's an interesting viewpoint. Thanks. It looks slightly different from here. Through my eyes, so a different angle is good.
I was wondering
That
what
would
he was
probably be the
referring
EU.
to as well.
But probably maybe about me talking about the EU. I don't want to.
Yeah, it was
just
probably
assume
the
here,
EU.
but probably
From
that.
their
Yeah,
perspective, they're the payers, not the
it's
consumers.
and you know what? I completely understand. I didn't like it, but I understand it. You know, so that's how it is. Oh, Hungary and Poland. Oh, you're talking about Hungary and Poland. What I was talking about it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I live in the area, so literally, I can jump into a car and I will be in under 40 minutes in Hungary, under 30
So
minutes in Hungary.
Wow.
Under where I live, under 40 minutes in Austria. I'm literally something like 70. Like right now, when there's no traffic, I could do probably in 75, 80 minutes to Vienna.
okay. So here in the West, we don't really have the scars of war, as it were, because we
Those
went
damn
there.
oceans.
It didn't come here.
Those damn oceans that
Yeah,
are
those
on
damn
the
oceans
left
get in
and
the way.
right side of the continent. Yeah.
But is there still noticeable things back from World War II that you can go, yeah, that was built World War II, and
Legacy.
still have it?
Legacy. Legacy, and it is younger generations keep forgetting because when I was a child, we had the soldiers who fought in the war coming to the schools and telling their own stories.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they are all dead now.
Yeah,
right?
there's very few that are.
Yeah,
Still,
we are literally 76 years. Yeah, today is Nagasaki, I think.
yeah, I
76
think
years
so.
since
Is
Nagasaki.
so. Was there a difference? Like, obviously, under the Soviet bloc and then after, when they would come to the schools, was there a difference in how they would tell stories under the Soviet bloc compared to after the
Uh,
Soviet bloc fell?
yes, definitely the Western Front was downplayed.
Okay.
Play down it was mentioned because something like a D-Day you cannot escape from even
Yeah,
at the
mentioning
time.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
at
right.
the time you cannot skip that. Obviously, the split between the rotten Western countries and the great
Yeah, so instead
Soviet
of
ruled
celebrating
countries.
D-Day or
No,
like those
liberation.
major, it would be the Battle of Kursk when
Yeah,
we took out the German
and
tanks, or Stalingrad, or
yeah.
Leningrad, or what have you.
Those
Those
but
would
those
be the
battles though,
more.
those, of course we were taught about those battles and everything. You know what, it was, is it 2 or 3 weeks ago, they are doing some new road construction in Bratislava, and they are building a new housing complex there in
Okay.
an area that used to be like a chemical manufactory, and they were cleaning it there for a decade just to make the area habitable. Now everything, this is where the EU helps. Now everything has to be according to EU safety rules.
Yeah, the
So
standard.
you can be
Hmm.
sure that by living 10 years in an area where there was a chemical plant, you won't grow a third arm or
Yeah.
something, you know.
Yeah.
So this is for example where the EU is really good at. Yeah,
Yeah, it helps keep people in check.
keeping, because if Germans agree with that certain rule, it will be good as well in Slovakia.
Yeah.
Despite chemical Germans. Okay, I'm not going in there. Those are just bad
You
jokes.
got to be careful which things you.
Yeah,
They had some pretty interesting ideas. Those guys.
but they found a bomb
Okay.
that was thrown from a plane and
Yeah.
didn't explode from
Oh
World
yeah.
War II.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was an American bomb
Yeah.
from 1944,
Yeah. Oh yeah. They
where
still
where
find them.
the where the
Yeah,
Slovak
that
fascist state declared war on the United States, and the response from the US was like, okay, here we go, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, we'll just bomb ya.
130 bombs fell onto the city.
Yeah.
So
So Colin P asks, did your transportation system need rebuilding after the war? I know that France and Germany's did.
to a certain point, like transportation system, we were like Back to the Future, where you go. We don't need roads, or we didn't have roads in many places. So that was basically a built new. Railways were working just fine. Bert, if you are still here in the chat, Slovakia had railroads way way before probably the United States. Yep.
Different
No,
gauge though.
horse carriages, and so so yes, certainly it had to be built anew. But there was a Slovak uprising that started in 44 and basically ended the war in 45. And the government was basically taken down by the organizers of the uprising, and this is why Slovakia ended as a winning side in the World War. So we didn't end up like Japan, Italy, or Germany. We were not the losing part; we were the winning part.
Yeah.
Just because of the uprising, but it was literally last minute. It started somewhere in summer 44, and the
Take care,
winter
Colin P.
44 and 45 was a pretty harsh one. Take care, Colin.
So, going back to because it really just like you can read all about what it was, but the problem with reading about it is it depends on who wrote it.
Yeah.
Right. So you got to look at it from, okay, what does the author want to get across? Because there are some people that even to this day will write very positively about those years, and you just read it and go, Stalin would have paid you a fortune. What the hell?
And you are good in writing science fiction. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
or fiction,
wow.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, damn. When did that happen? Because with the transitions, like how big of a transitions did it? Because I know in Russia it was major, like when there was a new person in power, like when Stalin left and Gerstra or whatever his name was took over. There was that big switch where Stalin was a bad guy, but I'm a good guy. We'll make things work. How fast did that go across? Where it's like, okay, yeah, we don't talk about Stalin anymore.
Here in Czechoslovakia, it was basically in my whole life, I remember only one president. Throughout my whole life, basically till basically 89,
Yeah.
So the government was basically there was only one party, so all the elections worked like people who could vote. You came to the room, you got your I have an echo a little bit.
No, you're fine. It's coming.
I hear an echo.
Oh, okay. I don't.
So that's why I'm stuttering, because I'm hearing myself twice.
I do hear the echo also.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't have headphones, so that's probably why.
So now it's gone. Is you unmuted, Jeff?
I'm
anyway.
just gonna move my mic.
I don't hear it.
Yeah. So what was I talking about? There was the form how the elections worked. You got your paper with all the candidates.
Okay.
And
take care, Eastland.
Take care, Eastland. And if and you couldn't go just like going into voting booth where you could cross out candidates that you would like to have, or cross out candidates that you don't like or something.
Yeah.
You had to take the paper, fold it, and put it into the urn. Without so because you agreed with everything, people who went in the voting booth were they got a tick next to their names, and they got a call, at least a call from the state security or the state police.
Yeah. Well, what exactly did you put on your ballot there, sir? Why did you not just do what is our party not doing good enough for you?
Yeah, exactly. So
take care, not Ryan Johnson.
Have a good one, Ryan Johnson.
And the fun part is how what happened in the early 80s in the Soviet Union. They had, and I don't know, there were like 3 presidents, or 3 not they were not presidents. They were the leaders of the Communist Party. Brezhnev was there for a very long time. When he died, there was Chernenko and Andropov. I don't know how they came in, but they were like old, and they died like I think there is a period in my memory that I was watching state funerals from the Soviet Union on TV. There were like 3 presidents that died, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah. It was
one after another.
They got the brass ring, and they weren't there very long.
Yeah, but when you looked at them, they literally looked like they were held on a string. Like, are they going to die right now or next week?
Yeah, and then I think even one of them, they waited a while because they didn't want to. They wanted to make sure they had who they wanted in place before they made the announcement, and then it was like business as usual, folks. Nothing to see here.
Nothing to worry about.
Yeah, because I know when Stalin passed, that was That was big.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing. Yeah, that was a big deal.
Mhm.
So
Actually, one of the benefits of Stalin passing was the Korean War stopped. Because it was Stalin that was
much, yeah.
pulling the strings behind.
you know
this.
what? There are so many things that we can talk about, but unfortunately, I will have to go.
No problem. We've kept you over. I only planned to go an hour, so we've kept you over.
And I see that we went something like
Hour and a half.
An hour,
Hour and a
hour
half,
35. Yeah.
which is okay. And if there are things that you would like to discuss, like more in depth, especially
Yeah,
something
we can
like
definitely come back
the
to this
80s
again.
or then the 90s, because there was as well a pretty interesting pretty interesting stuff that was happening here.
Yeah,
We can discuss that as well. I will
Yeah,
have to
we'll-
read up on a few things just to refresh my memory.
Yeah, we'll
certainly,
we'll get
certainly.
back together and we'll do this again. Well, thank you to Joseph for agreeing to come and pay a visit in the past for a couple of minutes. And
Most interesting, Josef. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
I hope it was entertaining. I think the chat was
Oh, they were
really lively.
engaged.
yeah, I
They
think
were-
it's
they were
very
definitely
informative. Like I
engaged.
said, it's one thing to read about it or to
to live through it,
regurgitate something that's been written.
or knowing at least the stories that literally your family members told you.
Yeah,
Right,
it's very
right.
different. It's very, very different. So I want to thank you for coming on, and we'll definitely have you back, and we'll talk some more about it because it's really interesting and it's really cool. And thank you to everybody in the chat. And then, as we say on this channel, as my departed co-host used to say, thank you and good night.